There's a specific kind of person who gets to the end of a long day and opens a new notes app, not because they've forgotten anything, they haven't, but something about stopping, actually closing the laptop, and just sitting in the quiet doesn't feel comfortable. So they add things to tomorrow's list. They reorganize. Maybe they color code. They add a task they've already done, just so they can cross it off to feel productive, like they are doing something useful. And for a moment, it works. The noise in their head drops. They feel more in control. But here's the question nobody ever asks. Why does writing the list feel like relief? Because if it's just a productivity tool, it shouldn't feel like anything. It should be neutral, like a shopping list. But it doesn't feel neutral. It feels necessary. If that's you, if stopping feels harder than keeping going, there's a specific reason your brain treats your list like a safety system, and it has nothing to do with being organized. Maybe it's not the list. Maybe it's the morning. You wake up and before your feet hit the floor, your brain is already running tomorrow's schedule. Not because you need to, because not knowing what's coming next makes your chest tight. You do it at weekends too. Saturday isn't Saturday until there's a plan. Even your rest has a schedule. And then there's the version nobody sees. Lying in bed, lights off, almost asleep. And your brain offers you one more thing to check. You pick up the phone. Because the discomfort of not checking is worse than being tired tomorrow. If you recognize yourself in any of that, there's a reason for it. Here's what I want you to consider today. Is your to-do list helping you get things done? Or is it helping you avoid how you feel? Because for a lot of high-functioning, high-achieving people, those two things look identical from the outside. But from the inside, they feel completely different. Here's the short answer. When anxiety is driving your productivity, your to-do list doesn't reduce your mental load. It records it. You're not clearing your mind. You're keeping a log of everything that hasn't been resolved yet. And the brain does not let unresolved things sit quietly. Now, here's the part most people miss. There's an anxiety pattern that most people don't recognize in themselves because it's disguised as being organized. It starts with a trigger, something uncertain, a decision you haven't made, a conversation you're avoiding, a project without a clear endpoint. Your brain reads uncertainty the same way it reads a physical threat, so it moves into worry. What if I miss something? What if I fall behind? That worry becomes rumination. You replay, plan, anticipate, going over the same information, looking for certainty that isn't there. As that loop runs, anxiety builds. Not dramatically, just that low-level hum, the background noise you stop noticing because it's always on. And here's where it gets clever. Instead of sitting with that discomfort, your brain offers you a way out. Distract yourself by doing something. Add it to the list. Plan it. Schedule it. Send yourself a reminder. And the anxiety drops, just enough. That's avoidance. Not the kind where you cancel plans and stay in bed. The high-functioning kind. The kind that looks like hard work. The kind that gets praised. And if you just thought, that's exactly what happens to me, there's a reason for that. Because the next part explains what's actually happening in your brain when this loop runs. And once you can see the mechanism, the whole thing stops feeling like a personal failing. Your brain has a default mode network, the background processing system that runs when you're not focused on anything. On the commute, in the shower, in the minutes before sleep. And what does it process? Open loops. Productivity researcher David Allen describes open loops as any unfinished task, worry, or commitment that doesn't yet have a clear next action assigned to it. Your brain keeps those loops active because it doesn't know what else to do with them. It treats them like browser tabs that are still loading. Every open loop draws from your working short-term memory. Working memory is not unlimited. Holding 20 open loops before 10 a.m. means your brain is running near empty by noon. You feel exhausted and you don't know why. All you've done is think. The relief you feel from writing a to-do list is real. It's a brief offload. But if the list keeps growing without a closure system, it doesn't close those loops. It just moves them from your head to a page where they stay open, still loading, still draining, still keeping you up at 11 p.m. while you add 3 more items. The list doesn't solve the problem. For many people, it becomes a second version of it. For some people, This pattern didn't start with a to-do list. It started much earlier. Therapist Pete Walker identified 4 ways the nervous system learns to cope with ongoing threat. One of them, the flight response, doesn't look like running. It looks like working, achieving, staying busy, keeping the list going. If you grew up somewhere your worth was tied to what you produced, where love felt earned, not given, your nervous system learned a rule: stopping is not safe. And it never updated that rule. That doesn't mean everyone who color codes their planner has a trauma history. But if rest genuinely feels threatening, if doing nothing brings guilt instead of relief, the roots may go deeper than anxiety alone. If that's resonating on a level that feels bigger than productivity, speaking to someone about it is always worth considering. So that's what's going on underneath. Knowing that gives you something specific you can change. 4 things, actually. The first one sounds simple. It isn't. Tool 1, the cognitive offload protocol. 3 steps: capture, think, close. Capture means getting everything out of your head and into one external system, not 3 apps, a sticky note, and a voice memo. One place. The brain doesn't care where the loop lands, as long as it's no longer your job to hold it. Think means you process that list once a day, not continuously, once. The only question you're asking is, what is the next physical action on this? Close means every item gets either a specific time in your calendar or it gets deleted. Those are the only options. If a loop doesn't get a time, your brain's default mode network keeps running it in the background, indefinitely, without asking your permission. A to-do list that works has a closure system. The one that's keeping you up at 11 p.m. doesn't. That's the first one. The second is harder, because it targets the pattern most overthinkers don't realize they're running. Tool 2, precision thinking. Here's what most people misunderstand about overthinkers. They're not looking for perfection, they're looking for certainty, and certainty doesn't exist, so they keep analyzing, trying to find the data that will finally make them feel safe enough to decide, and they never find it, because it isn't there. The shift I want you to make is this. Stop asking, what's the right decision? Start asking, what single piece of information would make me 10% more confident to take the next step? This is called precision thinking. Think about GPS navigation. Your phone calculates the full 400-mile route, start to finish, but it doesn't show you all of that at once. It gives you one instruction. In 200 meters, turn right. That's precision, not perfection. The 10% rule works the same way. You don't need the answer to mile 400. You need the one piece of data that justifies your immediate next step. Find that, then move. Psychologist Herbert Simon called this satisficing. His research showed that people who aim for good enough rather than optimal make faster, less anxious choices with outcomes just as good. You don't need the perfect answer, you need the next one, now. Those 2 handle the doing. The next one handles the spiraling. Tool 3, the helicopter view. Overthinkers collapse time and space. A minor email becomes a career-defining moment. A missed deadline becomes evidence of everything that's wrong with you. Your brain zooms in until the thing in front of it fills the entire field of vision. And when that happens, perspective disappears. The helicopter view changes your relationship to the problem by observing it from a distance rather than trying to think your way out of it. When you notice you're spiraling, close your eyes and visualize yourself from 1,000 feet above where you're sitting right now. Not the problem, just yourself, in the room you're in. From that height, you're watching the weather. The storm is still there, but you're no longer standing in it. You're above it. What changes isn't the problem. It's your position relative to it. And that shift, from inside the experience to watching the experience, is often enough to interrupt the loop. And the last one is the one most people skip because it feels uncomfortable. That's exactly why it works. Tool 4, the decision loop. In 1955, Cyril Northcote Parkinson made an observation that still holds. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. For overthinkers, this is especially true of the thinking phase. Without a hard stop, reflection doesn't lead to clarity. It decays into rumination. Military strategist John Boyd built a decision framework called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Each phase had a hard boundary. When time was up, you moved to the next one, regardless of how certain you felt. Here's how to apply this. When you have a decision to make, give yourself a fixed window to analyze it. Set a timer, 20 minutes for a significant decision, 5 for a small one. When the timer goes off, the analysis phase is permanently closed. You decide with what you have. The discomfort of deciding without total certainty is not a sign you're making the wrong choice. It's a sign your brain hasn't yet learned that good enough is safe. And that's exactly what you're teaching it every time you close the loop. Your to-do list isn't the problem. It never was. It's what the list is being asked to carry that matters. When it's carrying your anxiety, it can't carry your tasks. Change the structure of how you handle open information, and the list becomes a tool again, not a system you rely on to feel okay. You're not broken. You've just been using a productivity strategy to manage something that productivity can't fix. But here's what most people notice next. Even when the list is done, even when everything is ticked off, there's still this feeling that it wasn't quite enough, that you could have done it better, done more. And the standard behind that feeling is one that nobody else would hold you to. That feeling has a name. And in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly what it's doing to you and why working harder has never once made it go away. If this felt like something you needed to hear, the next one will too. Subscribe so it finds you. I'll see you there.